Wanted to thank all of you and you've just been a great audience and, my kids are here. Diane Keaton waited 34 years to tell this story. She and Al Pacino had a love that consumed Hollywood. But behind the cameras something darker was happening. She found out he was drowning in debt despite his fame. The people around him were taking advantage. She tried to save him. She fought his representatives. She demanded better contracts. Then came the moment that ended it all. In 1990, she asked him to marry her. His answer destroyed their relationship. What she's revealing now will shock fans who thought they knew their story. Diane Keaton didn't just come from a normal home. Her mother, Dorothy Diane Keaton, had once worn a crown as Mrs. Highland Park in 1955, and that image stuck in Diane's memory forever. She was only 9 when she watched her mother win, standing proud on that stage, and something inside her shifted. Dorothy herself had grown up during the Great Depression after being abandoned by her father, so she was determined to give her children everything she never had. That dream didn't just show up in love and care. It showed up in ink. Dorothy kept 85 journals across her lifetime, filling them with every newspaper clipping, every photo, every moment of Diane's rising fame. When she passed away in 2008 after battling Alzheimer's, Diane uncovered this mountain of memories, so carefully preserved that they became the backbone of her memoir. Then again, her mother's pageant days hadn't been for fame. They were theater. They were storytelling. And they planted the seed for Diane's lifelong love of performing. Her father, Jack Newton Ignatius Hall, was a civil engineer and real estate broker, a man shaped by his Irish roots and his service in World War II. He worked hard and provided for the family, but behind his steady exterior was a quiet storm. Near the end of his life, during a drive home from UCLA Medical Center while fighting terminal brain cancer, he turned to Diane and whispered words she never forgot. He said he always hated his job and wished he had taken more risks. That confession shattered her. It wasn't a passing comment. It was a lifetime of regret, packed into a single sentence. Pushed Diane to chase her dreams with everything she had. While Jack felt stuck in real estate, Diane would later transform it into a creative empire, flipping homes in Southern California with flair and freedom. The most touching part was how his sorrow became her motivation. His regret lit the spark that led her to adopt her first child and helped her embrace a life full of risk, creation, and reinvention. But their life in Los Angeles during the 1950s wasn't always easy. Jack's real estate business struggled and money became tight. Diane spent her childhood in thrift stores like Goodwill, while other girls shopped at Buffum's. Her mother would buy cheap second-hand clothes, then redesign them on her old McCall's sewing machine, turning scraps into style. These weren't cute mother-daughter craft days. They were about making do with what little they had. That experience didn't just shape Diane's fashion sense. It gave her strength. Moving from house to house taught her that nothing stays forever. And that's what made her so good at playing those offbeat, charmingly anxious characters that people would come to love. Her mother's sewing wasn't just about clothes. It was survival, dressed up as creativity, and it helped turn Diane into someone who could walk through Hollywood's doors without fear of being different. Diane didn't wait to grow up before stepping into the spotlight. Just 3 years old, she would perform for the neighbors, putting on full shows in the backyard while wearing costumes her mother helped create. These weren't just cute toddler moments. She was staging real productions before she could read. By the time she reached Santa Ana High School, her talent had already bloomed. She played Blanche DuBois in A Streetcar Named Desire, a role most teens wouldn't even dare attempt. And when she performed in Little Mary Sunshine during Her senior year in 1963, something unforgettable happened. After her solo, the applause came like thunder. She stood backstage stunned, hearing the crowd erupt, and that sound became her fuel. It was the first time she realized performing wasn't just fun. It filled something inside her. It made her feel alive. But the name Diane Hall almost never made it to a marquee. When she tried to join the Actors' Equity Association, she discovered another actress had already taken the name. That small twist forced her to choose a new one. She didn't just pick something random. She reached back to her roots and chose Keaton, her mother's maiden name. It wasn't just a change in letters. It was a nod to the woman who had unknowingly built the stage she now stood on. Diane erased her father's Irish last name from her public life, not out of disrespect but because the name Keaton already carried a legacy of performance, of costumes, of dreams. At school, Diane stood out in drama club, but it was never about being the prettiest girl on stage. She knew she wasn't the classic beauty. She said it herself. She grew from a skinny, awkward girl into a slightly overweight teen, and her clothes became her armor. She wore white lipstick, black net stockings, and anything that made her feel less invisible. That insecurity turned into style. Years later, she would walk the streets of Soho and copy outfits from the confident women she saw, crafting her now iconic wardrobe of slouchy suits, oversized hats, and neutral colors. Her fashion wasn't about turning heads. It was about protecting herself. And ironically, it became one of the most recognized styles in Hollywood. At one point, she even tried beauty pageants like her mom. But unlike Dorothy, Diane felt something was off. She realized fast that these competitions were more about looks than talent. She didn't want to be judged for her smile or her waist. She wanted to act, so she quit, much to her family's surprise. It was her first public rebellion, and it set the tone for the rest of her life. She'd rather stand alone than fit into a mold that didn't feel true. At 17, her heart was broken. For the first time, she had a crush on one of those tall, golden high school basketball players who never noticed her. When he made fun of her laugh, it stung more than anything. That laugh would later become her signature. But back then it felt like a curse. She started using humor to shield herself, cracking jokes before anyone else could. She began building a wall of wit, and it worked. That heartbreak carved out the self-deprecating comedy style that would define her film career. She turned pain into laughter, rejection into power. Co-star Tony Roberts once said, "She had a way of making you feel like a kid again, because she never pretended to be anything other than her weird, wonderful self." Then came the big leap. In 1964, Diane left Santa Ana College after one semester, then gave Orange Coast College a brief try. But college wasn't what she wanted. She said she only went for the musicals anyway. With nothing but determination, she decided to move to New York City and chase her dream. Her acting teacher had told her about the neighborhood playhouse school of the theater, and Diane took that as a sign. Her whole family packed into a Ford van and drove across the country to check it out. She got in on a scholarship and began studying the Meisner technique. It was a massive risk for a middle-class girl from California.